Today on Dice to Pixels, we're going to be talking about Daggerheart, the new TTRPG from Critical Role, an Xbox that doesn't actually work, and a couple other things. Stick with us. All right. So before we get into either of those two main items, I'm going to do a new thing, which I'm going to try and make this a more or less weekly thing. A little story time from gaming history.
Adrian's hors d'oeuvres.
Ooh.
Oh, I like that.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
So this is something that a lot of people might already know about. Chad, you might know this. I bet, Sarah, you don't.
Probably.
Definitely not.
I'm going to tell you about how PlayStation was originally a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, a disc add-on.
Yeah,
Oh.
exactly.
Well,
so
Yeah.
well,
Go ahead.
so when the PlayStation was the first iteration of the PlayStation, Nintendo was looking for a CD-ROM add-on to the Super Nintendo,
Yes.
similar to the Sega Saturn or the X32.
No, it was the Sega Genesis.
It was the
Genesis with
X32
Sega CD.
for the Sega CD, whatever it was. Yeah, same idea. In fact, we'll get to that in a second because that also comes into the story. So what happened was they were going to build the add-on, but then Sony was going to build a console that was basically the two of them together. So it was like a CD-ROM cartridge hybrid.
Yep.
And that was called the PlayStation. And there is actually a version of it that has been recovered, and somebody has since restored it, and it works.
That's cool.
Unfortunately, none of the games ever were like released to the public, so none of those exist. But there is a functional Sony PlayStation, a Nintendo PlayStation, complete with the SNES controller that says PlayStation on it, that is functional, and you can play homebrew and I assume bootleg versions of SNES games via CD-ROM.
That's
so that was the original thing. Now, the reason it didn't go to fruition is Sony. It's a little hard to tell because, of course, it's dating quite a bit back, and he said, she said sort of stuff. But basically, Sony, the way the deal was set up, Sony would have gotten all of the gaming rights, like the software rights to not software rights, that's not quite right, but all of the rights to any of the CD-ROM games. So in theory, even if it was a Nintendo game, like even if they brought like Super Mario World to the CD, Sony would get some sort of rights to that. It's not entirely clear what, but enough that's why Nintendo put the kibosh on it. But interestingly, the way that Sony found out about this, Sony had announced on whatever day, I think at E3, that they were partnering with Nintendo and they were going to make this CD-ROM add-on and everything else. The next day, Nintendo publicly, they hadn't told Sony this. They came out at their press conference and they said, we're partnering with Philips to make our CD-ROM. And the Sony exec was in the audience, and that's the first he had heard about it.
Oh,
Yep.
What a way to
so
destroy
that's fun.
public relations.
And then Sony actually, as a result of that, they went and talked to Sega. And they were originally going to build the Sega CD-ROM stuff.
Oh.
But I guess Sega decided that they would just do it on their own. Because, I mean, how hard is a CD-ROM drive, right?
Yeah.
And then at that point, being burned by both of those situations, they apparently tried to get something going with the Nintendo at some point. But then Sony was like, fuck this, we're just going to build our own console. And
clearly
that's
the worst decision they ever made.
Oh, right. Horrible decision
Yeah.
on Sony's part. So that's where if you didn't already know, that is sort of the genesis of the PlayStation. And you can find it. I don't have the YouTube channel written down here. I should have, but I will drop it in the description. My understanding is that you can actually see part of the teardown and repair process.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because I know I've seen it online. I saw it years and years ago and was like, what the hell is this? This is
I had
crap.
seen
And
it, but I thought it was a meme. Like, I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, and then I think Chad later told me that it was the real thing.
Yeah, the prototype is... you can't really see. I'm trying to show.
Yeah.
Well, I can.
Yeah.
I'll put.
It's
links
kind of,
in the
it's
description.
literally like
It's
an
so
SNES and some of the stuff that later came on
Yeah.
the first PlayStation.
so the front end of it reminds me a lot of the disc system that was with the Famicom with just the eject, or that's a power button, but it reminds me of that. But the aesthetics of it and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's also worth noting that this was all based on the Super Famicom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Not technically they're the same system, but
Yeah.
we got the SNES, but that's the Japanese version of the SNES, which didn't look like ours to begin with.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
aesthetically it has more in common with that, as you say, the Famicom stuff.
But even like it's got the round buttons
Yeah.
on top, like a PlayStation.
Yeah,
ended
The
up
eject
having.
and reset button.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I had found out that about it being a real thing. I didn't realize how public that breakup was, though.
Yeah,
that is shitty.
That's the part of the story where I was like, oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he didn't know until he's sitting in the audience and they
Oh my God.
like that's shady.
well, and
Yeah.
like the bigger irony in that is that roughly 10 years later, actually less than that, Sony would release the PlayStation 2 and basically put Sega out of business. Like,
Yeah.
the hardware. When it comes to hardware, they
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
so-
interesting thing. Like Nintendo, you're like, oh, they kind of screwed themselves by adding a competitor to the market, but it was Sega that it's like, oh, you really should have stuck with that
Yeah.
guy.
well, and then Sony, as everybody knows, has been a dominant
Yeah,
for home video game consoles with like the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 4.
I mean, there's a lot of evidence that at least as far as the hardware and everything goes, that they are like the leader by a good margin.
Yep.
So-
And I find it kind of funny, though, reflecting back on that and the joining of those two companies, whereas Sony was such a big anti-Xbox and
Yeah.
Activision. So it's just like,
yeah, it's like they got burned and they stuck with that grudge.
yeah.
Good for them.
So going forward, I'm going to try and come up with something interesting that hopefully at least some people haven't heard about, or at least elements of the story. And I'm gonna do a quick blurb on that from time to time.
Adrian's hors d'oeuvres.
Let me know in the comments if you hate it or like it or
Yeah.
whatever, or if you have suggestions for topics to cover.
Yeah.
While on the topic of hardware,
Yes.
Microsoft, in conjunction with the pending release of Final Fantasy XIV Online on the Xbox platform, they have a contest going on right now on their X account. They have a tweet, which is basically you follow Xbox and you follow Final Fantasy 14's X pages, retweet the tweet from either one of them with the hashtag Xbox FF14 sweepstakes, and you're entered in the chance to win a custom Final Fantasy 14 console that doesn't work,
yes.
another Series X console that does work,
Yeah.
the complete collector's edition of Final Fantasy 14 Online, and a 12-month Xbox Game Pass Ultimate membership.
Yeah.
Entries
so-
end on March 28th, so
Yep,
if you're on
you got
X,
a little
yeah.
while. So, yeah, if you dig into the actual terms, we saw this on Kotaku and a couple other news sites. But sure enough, if you dig into the terms of the contest, it specifically says that the decorated Xbox is non-functional and to be used as an art piece. And then you also get a separate normal X, which you can use to play games.
Now I wonder if the separate functional Series X looks like the blue Series X that they have in this art piece.
Well, I'm wondering that for two reasons, because they also show a decorated controller there.
Yeah, I
Which-
wonder if
which
it like
matches
just
the
has like
system.
a wrap on it or something, the actual one, or
Yeah,
if it comes
well-
with a sticker pack.
Well, my thing is like, okay, so you're giving me a controller that matches the system that I'm not supposed to play or can't play. But then like that's weird because now I have a decorated controller that matches the art, but presumably the controller works.
Yeah, I was just gonna say unless the
Maybe-
controller's non-functional.
Maybe not. Maybe
Yeah.
it's also maybe they gutted it. Like I don't know. It's very strange. It's an odd.
I mean,
It's odd. I
You-
would expect it to have like a dock if it's meant to be an art piece. I would
Yeah.
expect the controller to have a dock and stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it does. I don't know. We'll see.
There-
I entered. If I win it, I'm going to tear it down live to find out why it's non-functional.
I entered too. Yeah, we're skipping the warranty.
Fuck that. I mean, the non-functional one surely doesn't have a warranty to begin with.
No.
Yeah.
It looks really cool, and like
pretty.
it's puzzling that they couldn't make, even if it was discless, for God's sakes. Like,
my only thing from looking at it, and I don't know why they couldn't make it work, is the bottom of it looks like it would interfere with the cooling system.
yeah.
But like, surely you could work
Wait,
around
the
it.
cooling's
the cooling
on
system
top.
on top.
Well, but it sucks air in from the bottom.
Oh, okay.
But again, like, clearly,
Okay.
surely you could make that work. Like,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Very strange. I'd be very curious to know why it's non-functional. Or if it is non-functional. Like, it may work perfectly fine, and they're just like, we just don't want you to, just don't use it. Just,
Yeah.
that's art. We'll send you a normal one.
Don't melt it and set your house on fire.
Yeah. But I'd be very curious if they actually did, like, gut the thing and it's just a shell. That would also be weird. So, anyways, that's...
It's like
silly.
light as hell, and it has like no weight to it whatsoever.
Or they just put a brick in it.
Oh,
yeah, I was
that'd
just
be
going to say
funny.
fill it with rocks.
Totally unrelated, but I was tearing down an old phone a while back. Like, an old phone. It was for a friend. They were doing like a pick up the phone to record for their wedding, like as a guest book.
Yeah. That's cool.
So you crack open these old phones. The old enough that they're still like old dial phones, but not like so old that the electronics themselves were heavy.
So, like, when you're talking old dial phone, like the
The rotary
round one?
phones.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, those are so cool.
Yeah. So so you crack it open because of course I have to take out the innards and replace it with recording hardware, and it's just got a bunch of weights in it, just a bunch of lead weights, so that you don't move the thing when you pick up the phone.
That makes so much sense. Those things are so heavy.
So heavy, and there's just like freaking blocks of probably lead for all I know, but yeah, that's why they're heavy.
It explains why so many people in distress in like some classic movies were always using their old rotary phones.
Oh, God,
as, like,
yeah.
a
Those
weapon.
weapons.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, they're chonky.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe the Xbox just has a bunch of weights in it.
Now there's so take this and then turn it into one of those old rotary phones where they have like the little earpiece on the side.
Ooh,
you know?
an Xbox phone?
Yeah,
I'm into
yeah.
it.
Oh man.
Get on there like,
Yes, hello. Oh, yes, I'd love to play this game. Thank you.
If I had a lot more time on my hand, I would actually buy like a parts only Xbox from eBay and do that, because that would be kind of fun.
Just put it in a whole bunch of dumb different stuff. People would buy it. I would get something cool.
I'd have it on the wall here so that people can dial in on like Discord audio while we're filming. And hello.
when you turn it on, it does like the whole like shh.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'd like D to P, D to P, please.
Yeah. So that's the Xbox, and then the other major thing that happened this weekend. This will probably take a few minutes of convo.
Because
Daggerheart.
You've read it.
Wow. So
Sort of.
full disclosure, I've skimmed it.
Yeah.
I only found out about this very recently, and I've skimmed it, but I know enough about it to have some opinions.
And you said that this was from Critical Role.
I hope that's correct, because otherwise I'm going to sound like an asshole in the intro. But
Darrington Press, which I think
Okay,
is,
yeah,
like,
that's owned by the Critical
it's owned
Role
by them. Yeah.
company.
It's
Oh yeah. There's
Yeah.
Matt. There's Matt Mercer and everybody right here. Yeah, this is them. This is the promised RPG, TTRPG that they said a year and a bit ago during Wizards Gate. They were like, we're gonna create our own system. Fuck all you all. And then like 2 weeks later went back to Wizards. But this is the
what?
yeah. Who could have guessed?
No way.
It's almost like somebody predicted that would.
Ah.
But anyways, they followed through. This is it. So it's called Daggerheart. Right off the top, it uses 2d12s. Actually, right off the top, their like guidebook, their rulebook is atrociously bad. Because the actual important information that you want to know, like what's your die system, is like way down.
I figure you'd lead with that.
Right. Well, we were talking about this just before we started filming. Like, this is a public play test. This is a beta test of the game. Anyone who's looking at this, you can assume they're familiar with TTRPGs. You should assume that they are. When you release the final version, like, okay, fine, maybe you need it to be like, you need like the preamble for new players. highly unlikely anyone's coming into this for their first ever TTRPG
Well, and the
experience.
thing is too, like even probably it is a play test, so they probably are taking layout considerations
Sure.
from people as well. And I can imagine that there will be people being like, "Why is this so far into your rule book?"
Yeah. To their credit, the PDF does have a good index that you can click through.
That's amazing
So
in and of itself.
that's good. But like, there's a bunch of crap that is not irrelevant, but not relevant until you actually go to play the game. That's like, you have to wade through tons of that shit before you get to the stuff that's like, do I even want to play this game? Like, is this even interesting? So anyways, their rule book is questionable, but it does seem to have the information. It's just in a weird layout, in my opinion. Other people probably think it's great. I don't know.
Talking about the layout of it and the order of where things are, that makes me think of when we were playing Witcher.
Yeah, Witcher is terrible.
Oh my God, their layout was like, if you were playing an actual Witcher in the game, you could not find how to make a Witcher until like almost 2/3 of the way through the book, at least halfway. Like it
Basically at the end of character creation.
It was well in the character.
Well, it was his own, because it was his own separate section.
Yeah, it wasn't even with all of the other characters, but
Yeah.
even they were like in a weird spot in the book too, and there was stuff in between the two of them. And
so I feel like with Witcher book, what they tried to do, and failed miserably, but what they tried to do was gear it towards reference instead of introduction, which is arguably the right thing to do, because once you understand the game as a whole, you can then like, okay, the stuff that you want, that you're likely to want on your 15th playthrough, that's right at the beginning.
Yeah.
I think they tried to do that and just failed horribly.
I think it might have also been the version of the book that you had, because we had the big thick one, whereas there is a smaller one where it is more like the game setup.
Getting started.
Yeah.
Getting set up. And
what did Devin call it? The fast mode version?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or whatever it was.
And this they went like Daggerheart, they went the opposite, where it's like, we're going to teach you how to play an TTRPG to the point of like how you should approach conceptually the idea of a TTRPG game as a player, like things to consider when you're conversing at the table. And it's like, that's all fine. But like, why put that at the beginning of the fucking... That's silly. That's not what I want to see when I open a book.
To be fair, there is other smaller games like the Stitch Punk stuffed toy game that I have. Like in their first few pages, they also have like the considerations for table talk and how dirty in terms of like how bloody you want your game to be. That's also in the first few pages too. So I can understand why you want to set those guidelines early, like before you start getting too much into like even your character creation, because if you're going to create a character that like just if anyone disagrees with them or they look at them wrong and they go and they stab them in the eye or something like that, and the rest of your players don't enjoy
Sounds
that.
great to me.
I know it does. I would do that for a character. But if everyone else at the table is not prepared for that type of game, and you don't find that out until you figured out your character, like that kind of puts a weird dynamic into your table.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, I do think that these books should be set up as reference, not as a like. You shouldn't expect that almost anyone is going to read it cover to cover. Some people will, but it's going to be rare.
Aye.
Yeah, some people do. Some people do. But most people are going to use it as a reference. So they're going to be like, cool, I want to create a bard. Let's go to the bard page. Yeah. And it should be set up for that. Yeah. So stuff that you want commonly should be at the beginning, and stuff that you're only ever going to read once should be way at the end. But anyways, whatever. Their layout kind of sucks. I'm sure it'll get better. Or I'm an asshole and it's already right. Who knows? But getting on to the actual meat of the game. So for starters, it's a dual D12 game system. So they call them duality dice, which I think is a stupid fucking name, but that's okay, because whatever, it's the name and that's fine. So you have a hope and a fear die. And the DC, the difficulty check is... It's just a number. You just add the two dice and whatever modifiers. If you roll higher on your hope die, you get like a hope point, which is not inspiration, but it's like fuel for spells and stuff. And then if you roll higher on fear, you get like a fear point, which harms you in some nebulous way. And the DM uses it as like currency to like buy encounter power-ups and stuff and
That
weirdness.
sounds familiar.
It does. Also, it sounds like a hell of a lot extra bookkeeping for no particular reason. Which is the one thing that I think that D&D made the right choice in 5 to eliminate a bunch of that shit.
Mhm.
And it's, to me, the crowd that is most into Critical Role, trying to say this without sounding too much of an asshole, the crowd that is really into Critical Role is probably not the same crowd that's going to want a lot of bookkeeping in their TTRPG.
Yeah, there'll be some overlap
There
for
will,
sure, but
100%.
yeah, probably not everyone for sure.
I'm going to guess the people who watch professional voice actors playing D&D on a regular basis are going to lean more into the, I just want to play, get the bookkeeping out of here.
Yeah, they want to do the role playing themselves. Okay.
Which is weird because in Daggerheart, the combat system has no initiative. You just kind of act when you feel like it.
There's other systems like that, which is weird too.
Totally. But that seems in direct opposition to like adding a bunch of other bookkeeping and then taking it away in the one part of the game that bookkeeping actually like
Helps.
matters.
Yeah.
It almost feels to me, just giving it a first pass, it feels like this was like designed by a committee where it was like everybody gets whatever they want and like, oh, you want extra shit in this section of the game? Cool. You want this part of the system to be way too easy? Okay, cool. Like it's there's no common thread. And also the fact that the hope and fear are 50-50 is garbage and they need to fix that immediately.
Yeah, there has to be some sort of like if you're getting too many fear points, there should be an influence. You know, talking about it, that kind of makes me think. I've never played it, but it makes me think of Cthulhu from what I've seen of it.
A little bit. There's elements of it. It feels like they tried to take elements of everything.
Yes, I literally was going to say that. It sounds like Cthulhu, and it sounds like there's no. I think its fate system doesn't have an initiative order at all. They sound like they've taken that from there. It sounds like they've taken a lot of elements from various games and tried to mash them together. Yeah,
which is not in and of itself a terrible thing.
No.
But yeah, the 50-50 fate like the idea, fear versus hope, like that's horrible. Any game that relies on a 50-50 chance is going to be shitty.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, cool, I succeed in 90% of my rolls, but I still get fear half the time. What the fuck is going on here? This is wildly stupid. That's a garbage mechanic that they need to get rid of or change or something.
Yeah, because if you're getting more, like if you've gotten 3 rolls in a row where you've had either hope or fear be your dominant, like that should have an influence going forward until something resets everything.
Well, and it kind of does. Like you mean it should influence, like it should feedback so that you don't keep going down that path, you mean?
No, I mean like if you've had like say 3 hope in a row be the dominant of the roll, then like you should get like an extra bonus on your next roll because like something you're holding on to hope, positivity or whatever. So you're bolstering yourself. Whereas if you're getting fear, like that should affect you negatively. Weirdly,
fear kind of does work that way, and hope doesn't really seem to. It's kind of weird because they're almost like different systems. Hope you use to like as fuel for your spells, but fear the DM uses against you. Which is weird. It's a very silly system, but more importantly, like to me at least, the idea that I can be, an absolute fucking badass at, let's say, picking locks, and I can succeed 95% of the time, but half of the time I'm still afraid of doing it
because there's spiders in the locks.
Yeah, I guess, right? Yeah. Like it's just because the system literally just says if your hope die rolls higher than your fear die, you get hope. If the opposite, you get fear. If they match, it's a critical success, by the way. Like that's stupid because like that doesn't change with your character. That doesn't grow with your character.
No.
That never
That also
It-
doesn't
it-
take into consideration your situation, which I think you're
Right.
kind of trying to
Right,
say.
exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's no situation, there's no nothing, it's just like 50-50 on any die roll. You might be afraid of it. It's like, why?
I'm here to pick flowers.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Now obviously as a DM you can be like, no, that's stupid, don't do that, but like it shouldn't be part of the game in the first place.
No.
The thing with the combat, I feel like any system that does away with initiative, that's a real problem because there are DMs that will do that properly. Like I think I would probably treat that fairly.
Yep.
But I know certain DMs that I'm sure come to mind for you guys too, that would just use that to punish the players.
Yep.
Yes.
And unfortunately, most DMs would do that.
Yeah.
They'd be like, "You're doing too well in this fight, so I'm just going to make them attack more often." And you don't leave that up to the DM.
No.
Here's a burning orphanage.
And like, don't get me wrong, it would be better if the DM just was better and
Yes.
didn't do that.
Yeah.
But you can't expect that. Like as
No.
experience has told me, you can't expect most DMs to actually be the neutral party that they're supposed to be.
Well, and the thing is too, it's not just the DM, but you're also going to get players that are just like
yeah.
going to be like, no, it's my turn, it's my turn,
Yeah,
it's my turn
100%.
every time. And then you've got the quiet people that sit back and they're going to be forgotten unless they have a good DM or other players that say, hey, you haven't gone in a while. What do you want to do right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd kind of want that because I'd literally make the quiet person like the fucking tank. Like just God.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like they don't do anything, but when they do,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like in the right gaming group, that can work really well.
Yes.
But most gaming groups, it's not going to work worth
No,
shit.
No.
especially if it's a group of people you're just like meeting for the first time and this is your first like campaign together. Whereas if you have a trusted group of friends that you've played several games with, you know each other, you know each other's play style, totally different. It could see it working a lot better.
it'd be interesting.
Yes.
It'll be interesting to see the results, like how this beta test goes, and see what kind of changes they make to their system.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like to be clear, we have not played through a game of this. I'm going based on my instincts from having played a lot of D&D in the past and knowing what works and doesn't. So some of this may work better than it sounds on paper, but the hope fear system is stupid. There's no way around that unless they add more to it or fix it in some way. That's just dumb.
Yeah, there's no nuance.
Yeah, it's the same as like the reason that D&D 5e got rid of the critical fail is because like no, if you've got a modifier of plus 15 on something, you shouldn't be able to critically fail. So
I
they
didn't
just
realize they
got rid of it.
got rid of that. I forgot. So many people still use it.
Yeah, they didn't totally get rid of it, but they mostly got rid of it.
Mhm.
And that was the reason. They're like, no, that you shouldn't just automatically fail for no reason. If you roll a 1 and still pass, then you should fucking pass.
Yeah.
This has the exact same problem where it's like it doesn't. Your chances of being afraid of something are the exact same at level 1 on your first adventure ever, and at level like 500 when you're slaying dragons for breakfast, right? Like that's just a stupid mechanic.
Yeah.
But then the other one that I want to talk about was their death thing, which some people will think this is great. I think that those people should stay the fuck away from TTRPGs. You don't die in this game unless you want to. Even if you die, you get to just not die.
Sounds like GTA RP.
Yeah. In the rules, it's like, well, you can just accept that you're dead and move on, or you can just kind of say like, no, I'm not dying, I'm coming back instead, and maybe you get a scar or something. Or the only one that I do kind of like is the third option, which is the risk it all. You roll your dice, and if you come up with a hope, you stand your ground for one more turn. But if you get a crit, you go back to full health, which is kind of like the death save.
Yeah, I was
like
gonna say.
it's similar.
I would enforce that at my table myself.
The whole like, yes, I absolutely died 100%. My character's dead, but I'm just gonna say it's not. I'm sorry. Why are you even playing a TTRPG?
I could see that being if you have small kids,
Sure,
that would be kid friendly at that point.
but I
But
mean,
also-
everybody already does that for kids and stuff. Like
Yeah.
that's not.
It's
You don't need that in the
it doesn't
rules.
need to be baked in. Your thoughts, Chad?
I have none.
I know that there are people who get really attached to their characters and don't ever want to die. And I was aggressive when I said those people should stay away from TTRPGs, but at some level I actually believe that because it's like, why bother having this structure to your game if you're just going to ignore it when it's inconvenient?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then,
I
just
agree.
don't bother. Just tell a story. You don't need the game mechanics.
Mhm.
If you're just going to ignore them anytime you don't like the result, then why the fuck are you playing?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, like I know I've had characters where I'm like, I'd be sad if they ever died, but at the same time, if it adds to the story,
Yeah.
then if it's a stupid thing, well then then I'd take the no, I'm not dying route.
Right, but like most DMs will already do that, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yes, you triggered a poison trap that would kill you, but let's make a deal here because I don't want your level 20 character dying to a poison trap. But yeah, no, the death stuff in this is, I think, stupid. Lots of people will love it. I'm sure I'm in the minority on this, but for me, it's just, if you're going to play a game with those mechanics, with mechanics that structure the game, then they still exist when it's inconvenient.
Yeah.
There has to be consequences.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
What's our time looking like?
We're way past.
We're way past. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there then, unless you two want to add
Nope.
anything else.
I haven't played shit.
Yeah,
I've been busy
played
as
a
You
few
fuck.
played
things.
guitar.
Yeah. Other than playing guitar, I haven't played anything. I'm trying to get through Final Fantasy Rebirth, and I can't. I'm trying to, but
Yeah.
I'm busy. I'm playing guitar again, so
Playing guitar. Yeah,
Guitar.
playing guitar and
playing
guitar.
guitar like a badass.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you been playing anything interesting?
I have been playing a dumb mobile game. Just a second, let me pull up the title here. Tingus Goose. It's an idler.
That's a horrible name. I love it.
It's so dumb. If you have issues with body horror, don't even look it up.
Oh.
It's ridiculous. It's goose coming from a pregnant person's stomach, puking out babies, and you get money, and it's so ridiculous, but it's also
Wow.
kind of satisfying. So
And on that note,
Yeah, somebody was on drugs when they wrote that.
100%.
All right, cool. Yeah, we'll catch you next week. I might drop something midweek because I've been doing a few things I might record something about. So,
cool.
all right. Thanks everybody for watching. Tell all your friends.
Join us next week.